In the bustling city of Atlanta, Georgia, a red car pulls up in front of a bank with 4 individuals inside. The driver, Baby, is grooving to the rhythm of bell-bottoms as the 3 robbers, Buddy, Darling, and Griff, embark on their daring mission. Moments later, the robbers return to the car and Baby hits the gas, the music still blaring in his ears. The police are hot on their trail, but Baby's swift maneuvering skills and quick thinking allow them to deftly navigate obstacles and evade the pursuing officers. As they make their way onto the highway, they pass by 2 other red cars, but Baby has a trick up his sleeve. After they go under a bridge, he expertly outsmarts the police and manages to escape, leading them to a nearby parking garage. There, he and the robbers switch to another car and make their successful getaway. As the day progresses, Baby makes a coffee run for himself and the robbers. They soon meet with their boss, Doc, who inquires about Baby's constant need for music. Doc reveals that Baby has tinnitus, a ringing in the ears, which he tries to drown out with music, a result of an accident from his childhood. During the meeting, Griff tries to intimidate Baby, but he remains unfazed. After the crooks part ways, Buddy warns Baby not to answer if Doc calls him again. But Doc disregards the warning and tells Baby to ignore Buddy's request. It's clear that Baby has a strong will and isn't easily intimidated, even in the dangerous world of crime. Baby lives with Joseph, a paraplegic and deaf man, who he communicates with through sign language. Despite Joseph's disability, he is aware that Baby is involved in some sort of illegal activities and keeps his money hidden under a floorboard. In his free time, Baby takes the recordings from his meetings with Doc and creatively remixes them into music tapes. He holds one tape close to his heart and labels it Mom, highlighting its special significance to him. This creative outlet may serve as a form of therapy for Baby, allowing him to process and make sense of his dangerous and unpredictable life as a getaway driver. Baby visits Bo's diner, where he lays eyes on the beautiful young waitress, Debora, singing a soulful tune. When Debora approaches him to take his order, she notices Baby's recorder and they strike up a conversation. Baby expresses interest in the song that Debora was singing, and later takes the time to find it down and listen to it at home. Joseph, who is always aware of Baby's surroundings, notices that Baby has been affected by someone and eventually figures out that Baby has met a girl. This encounter with Debora seems to bring a new and different energy into Baby's life, as he finally begins to open up to the idea of love and companionship amidst the chaos of his criminal dealings. Doc calls Baby in for their next job and introduces him to a new team of criminals, Eddie No-Nose, JD, and Bats. Their target is a heavily guarded armored truck. As Doc explains the plan, Baby listens to his music, seemingly uninterested in the details. However, when Bats questions Baby's ability to carry out the job, Baby demonstrates his exceptional memory by restating the entire plan word for word, impressing everyone in the room. This job holds great significance for both Baby and Doc, as it is the final heist that Baby needs to complete in order to pay off a debt he owes to Doc. Despite the pressure and danger involved, Baby approaches the job with his trademark calm and collected demeanor, relying on his instincts and expertise as a getaway driver. The robbers, including JD, Bats, and Eddie No-Nose, congregate near the armored truck as they prepare to carry out their latest heist. Unfortunately, JD's lack of attention to detail is revealed as he procures the wrong masks, much to the annoyance of their leader, Doc. Meanwhile, Baby remains in the getaway car, lost in his own world of music. As the robbery commences, tragedy strikes when Bats kills a guard, leading to a panicked escape back to the car. Baby tries to leave, but they find themselves pursued by a relentless Marine, Clay Donahue Fontenot, who shoots at the vehicle. Baby, using his expert driving skills, swerves and weaves through the streets, but eventually gets stuck under a truck on the highway. In a split-second decision, Baby pulls away from a shot Bats had at the Marine, causing the crew to abandon their car and steal another from a woman with a baby. The chaos continues as JD drops his shotgun and the group flees the scene. Eventually, they make it to a parking garage and part ways in separate vehicles. Bats confronts Baby, accusing him of purposely avoiding the shot at the Marine, and holds a gun to his face. Baby denies the accusation, but Bats knows better, realizing that Baby's emotions have gotten the better of him. Baby sauntered back into Bo's diner, eager to bask in the warm glow of Debora's smile once more. As they settled into a booth and caught up on life, the conversation inevitably turned to music. With twinkling eyes, Debora brought up a topic that had been on her mind. "Have you ever noticed," she said, "how there are so many songs that bear our names? I mean, there are songs called Debora and Debra, but it seems like the list of songs about Baby is never ending." Baby nodded in agreement, fascinated by the idea. "It's true," he said, "our names have been immortalized in the lyrics of some of the most memorable songs of all time. It's almost as if the universe is telling us that we are destined to be remembered, to leave a lasting imprint on the world." Debora smiled at the thought and took a sip of her milkshake, feeling grateful for this moment, for this conversation, and for the person sitting across from her. Baby couldn't help but feel the same, marveling at the strange, wonderful way that life brings people together. As they continued their discussion, the sounds of the diner melted away, replaced by the songs that had been written about them, serenading their every move. It was a beautiful moment, one they would both always cherish. As Baby made his way to Doc's hideout, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When he arrived, he found that only Bats and Eddie were there to greet him, which only added to his unease. But he quickly put those thoughts aside when Doc emerged from the shadows and informed him that he had a job for him. Doc told Baby that he needed him to dispose of a car, one that held a dark and weighty secret. It was the car in which JD's lifeless body lay, and Doc needed it gone, and gone quickly. Without hesitation, Baby took the keys and set off on the task at hand. As he drove the car to the junkyard, he couldn't help but let his mind wander. He thought back to his childhood and the memories of his mother, who was a singer of great talent and beauty. He remembered how his father had abused her, and how they had gotten into a fatal car accident while arguing in a car similar to the one he was driving now. The memories were painful, but they also filled him with a sense of determination to honor his mother's memory and make something of his life. Finally, Baby arrived at the junkyard and got to work disposing of the car. As he went about his task, he couldn't help but feel like he was purging his own demons along with it. When he was finished, he took a deep breath, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and to make the most of the second chance life had given him. Baby was eager for a fresh start and a chance to leave his old life behind, so when an opportunity came up for him to take a job as a pizza delivery driver, he jumped at the chance. With newfound freedom and a sense of purpose, Baby was finally able to pursue a relationship with Debora, the woman he had been infatuated with for so long. But just as Baby was settling into his new routine, he was approached by Doc. The sly and cunning criminal had a new job for Baby, one that he couldn't refuse. Doc threatened Baby with the safety of Debora, making it clear that if he didn't comply, she would be in grave danger. Baby was torn, but he reluctantly agreed, knowing that he couldn't risk anything happening to the woman he had grown to love. That evening, after a successful delivery, Baby took Debora home, and as they stood on her doorstep, the air between them grew thick with tension. They looked into each other's eyes and without a word, they shared their first kiss, a kiss that was both sweet and filled with a sense of longing. Although he was in a dangerous and potentially life-threatening situation, Baby couldn't help but feel grateful for this moment, for this new beginning, and for the love that was slowly blossoming between him and Debora. He vowed to keep her safe, no matter what the cost, and to make the most of every moment they had together. Doc was always one step ahead, and his latest plan was no exception. He had brought Baby to the local post office, with the intention of setting up a heist that would put all others to shame. He needed Baby to go in, disguised as a customer, to scope out the place and gather information. To make it less suspicious, Doc brought along his nephew Sam, who would serve as Baby's cover. Baby and Sam made their way into the post office, and as they approached the front desk, they were greeted by a friendly teller named Allison. She struck up a conversation with the two of them, unaware of the real reason for their visit. Sam used the opportunity to scope out the place, taking note of the security measures in place, the layout of the building, and any other information that would be useful to Doc. Once they had gathered all the information they needed, Baby and Sam returned to Doc's car, where they reported their findings back to him. Doc listened intently, taking in every detail and using it to plan out the heist to a T. He was a master at his craft, and with Baby and Sam on his team, he was confident that this heist would be a success. As they drove away from the post office, Baby couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. He knew that this was a dangerous game they were playing, and that there was always a risk of getting caught. But he was in too deep now, and there was no turning back. All he could do was hope for the best and trust in Doc's expertise. Baby couldn't take it anymore. He was tired of the constant danger and the fear that something would happen to Debora. He needed a way out, a chance to start over and leave it all behind. So, he called Debora with a plan to run away and never look back. To his relief, Debora was on board with the idea. She was just as eager for a fresh start, and she saw the opportunity to be with Baby as a chance to finally escape the chaos of their current lives. As he hung up the phone, Baby closed his eyes and let his mind wander. He envisioned a black and white fantasy where Debora was standing by a classic car, waiting for him to join her. The sun was shining, and the wind was blowing through her hair. She smiled at him, and he could feel the warmth of her love from across the distance. In that moment, Baby felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that this was their chance to be together, to start anew, and to leave their old lives behind. He was filled with a sense of determination and excitement, and he couldn't wait to make his fantasy a reality. Doc was known for never using the same crew for more than one heist, but this time, he had gathered a team that he trusted. Buddy, Darling, and Bats were all on board, with Baby still serving as the getaway driver. Their next task was to acquire guns from an arms dealer known as the Butcher. As they made their way to meet the Butcher, Baby pulled over at a convenience store so Bats could run inside to grab a few items. In the meantime, Buddy and Darling, who were married, found themselves getting a little kinky in the backseat. However, their playful mood was interrupted when Darling mentioned that Bats had looked at her funny. This irked Buddy, who asked if she wanted him to kill Bats. But Darling simply replied, "Not before the heist." Bats soon returned with a whole box of stolen gum, and the group continued on their way to meet the Butcher. Despite the potential danger they faced, the group was determined to get the guns they needed to pull off their next heist. With Baby behind the wheel, they were ready to take on anything that came their way. The crew arrived at a warehouse, ready to meet the Butcher and his thugs to acquire their weapons for the next heist. The Butcher showed off his vast collection of guns and rifles, including some hand grenades. But as the crew was examining the weapons, Bats noticed the letters APD on the side of one of the gun boxes. This realization led Bats to conclude that the Butcher and his men were actually cops. Acting quickly, Bats shot the Butcher, triggering an intense shootout. The crew was able to take out most of the Butcher's men, but Darling was hit in the arm. Just as they thought it was over, one of the men tried to escape. But the robbers weren't about to let him get away. They shot him and Bats even threw a grenade into his car for good measure. Buddy and Darling were furious with Bats for starting the shootout, but he stood by his actions, reminding them that they were facing off against the police. The group quickly gathered their weapons and headed back to their car, their adrenaline still pumping from the intense encounter. Despite the setback of Darling's injury, the crew was one step closer to pulling off their next heist. On their way back to docks, Bats ordered Baby to make a stop at Bo's diner. Baby was reluctant to go, as he feared that their presence could put Debora in danger. However, Bats was insistent and forced Baby to go. When they arrived, Debora noticed that Baby seemed worried and took their order without letting the others know that she had a connection to him. Meanwhile, Buddy and Darling continued to argue with Bats about his actions at the warehouse. As they were getting ready to leave, Bats asked Baby if he knew Debora, to which Baby lied and said no. Bats then stood up and pulled out his gun, but Baby was quick to act and grabbed Bats' hand, preventing any potential harm. The crew then left the diner, with Baby leaving the check and a generous tip for Debora, along with a note that read road trip 2 a.m. This sudden stop at Bo's diner left Baby in a tense and dangerous situation, but he was able to handle the situation with his quick thinking and bravery. The note left for Debora also hinted at a possible future rendezvous, leaving Baby with a glimmer of hope for his future with her. The team of bandits made their way back to their leader, Doc, who could sense that something was amiss. Bats eagerly shared the news that their gun supplier, the Butcher, and his men were actually undercover cops. To their surprise, Doc was already aware of this fact as they were in his pocket, but Bats attempted to save face by fabricating a tale of how the shootout was started by the police. His companions, Buddy and Darling, backed up his story. With the pressure mounting, Doc turned to Baby for a decision on whether or not the upcoming heist should proceed as planned. Despite his reservations, Baby, with a heavy heart, reluctantly agreed to proceed with the operation. As Baby quietly made his way out of his room at the stroke of 2 a.m., with the intention of keeping his rendezvous with Debora, little did he know that he was being closely watched. Buddy and Bats were trailing him every step of the way, and their suspicions were soon aroused. In a moment of desperation, Bats reached for the one thing that would give him the answers he sought: Baby's treasured recording device. With one swift blow, Bats struck Baby, sending him into a deep slumber. The sound of the music that once filled Baby's life now faded into the distance, as he was plunged into the darkness of unconsciousness. As Baby regains consciousness, he finds himself seated at Doc's table, surrounded by Bats and Buddy who are rummaging through his apartment. Despite riding Joseph's wheelchair, Bats insists that he didn't cause any harm to Joseph. Doc takes notice of Baby's tapes and questions him about their contents, but Baby skillfully proves that they are nothing but a collection of his favorite music tracks. As Doc continues to interrogate him, Baby realizes that Debora is still waiting for him, twiddling her thumbs with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The thought of her being alone and worried weighs heavily on Baby as he tries to navigate his way out of the sticky situation. As the morning sun rises, the crew makes their way to the post office for the final heist. Buddy takes the lead and fearfully holds Darling captive, while Bats slips into the back. Baby waits in the getaway car, his nerves on edge. Suddenly, he sees the familiar face of the teller from the day before, who greets him with a warm smile and a wave. With a subtle shake of his head, Baby warns her of the danger ahead. Moments later, the teller returns with a guard by her side. Just as the robbers make their way back to the car, the guard taps on Baby's window, sparking a violent confrontation. Bats pulls out his shotgun and kills the guard, setting off the alarm and sending the police rushing to the scene. In a moment of desperation, Baby is forced to hit the gas and speed away. As he drives, Bats aims his shotgun directly at him. But with a quick twist of the wheel, Baby drives into a truck with a steel bar protruding from its bed, impaling Bats and ending his life. Baby, Buddy, and Darling escape the chaos, their fates now uncertain. As Baby hurtles through the city, pursued by relentless law enforcement, he frantically changes his appearance and steals different vehicles in a desperate attempt to evade capture. During his flight, he comes across an elderly woman named Andrea Fry and, in a moment of unexpected mercy, returns her purse to her before taking her car. Reunited with Buddy and Darling, the trio attempt a final, daring escape but are swiftly surrounded by a barrage of police officers. Tragically, in the ensuing chaos, Darling is felled by police fire, her body collapsing to the ground as Buddy erupts in a fit of rage, wildly firing at the officers while Baby manages to slip away in the commotion. Baby returns to his apartment and is overjoyed to find that Joseph is safe, despite having fallen to the floor. With a heavy heart, he realizes that he must continue to flee from the police, but he refuses to leave Joseph behind. He gathers what little resources he has and, with a sense of urgency, brings Joseph to a secure and caring nursing home. There, Baby takes a moment to reflect and offers a heartfelt apology to Joseph for not being able to keep his promise to protect him. Despite the danger that still surrounds him, Baby is determined to outrun the police and find a way to make amends for the mistakes he has made. Baby races towards Bo's diner, eager to reach Debora's side and protect her from harm. But when he arrives, he finds Buddy sitting at the counter, brandishing his weapon and demanding retribution for Darling's death. The tension in the room is palpable, as Debora cowers in fear and Buddy's finger rests on the trigger. Suddenly, a police officer enters the diner and Buddy's attention is momentarily diverted. Taking advantage of this momentary distraction, Baby pulls out his gun and fires a shot, striking Buddy in the chest. With Debora in tow, he makes a daring escape, stealing a car from two unsuspecting individuals and speeding towards Doc's hideout. But Buddy's final act of revenge echoes through the diner as he shoots the police officer dead, leaving destruction and bloodshed in his wake. As Baby and Debora make their way to meet with Doc, the stakes were high and tensions were at an all-time high. Baby, desperate for a way out, begged for Doc's help and offered him the spoils from the heist. Despite his initial reservations, Doc saw the desperation in Baby's eyes and relented, allowing Baby and Debora to take the money and escape. However, their escape was far from easy. As they descended in the elevator, they were suddenly confronted by a group of men working for the butcher, brandishing guns and intent on stopping Baby and Debora's getaway. Despite being shot twice, Doc bravely fought back, killing all three men and clearing the way for Baby and Debora. But their troubles were far from over as Buddy arrived in a stolen police car, determined to bring Baby and Debora down. With a determined fury, Buddy tried to run them down, but Baby was quick to react, ramming Buddy's car over the edge of the railing and sending it hurtling towards the ground. However, Buddy was not so easily defeated, and he emerged from the burning wreckage, deafening Baby with shots fired close to his ears. He went after Debora, who had grabbed a crowbar in an attempt to defend herself. In that moment, Baby gathered his wits and his weapon, taking aim and shooting Buddy in the leg. The wounded Buddy stumbled back and fell onto the burning car, which exploded in a final, fiery climax. As the sun rose over the horizon, Debora and Baby embarked on their journey, the sound of Baby's mother's melodic voice filling the car as they drove. However, their escape was not meant to be as they soon encountered a blockade of police cars, who had finally caught up to the infamous getaway driver. Despite Debora's attempts to maneuver around them, Baby made the selfless decision to surrender and face the consequences of his actions. As Baby stands before the court, his fate hanging in the balance, he listens as those closest to him recount their experiences with him. Debora, Joseph, the post office teller, and even the lady whose car Baby once stole, all speak of him with kindness and understanding. They paint a picture of a young man who, despite making some unfortunate choices, never meant to cause harm to others. As the judge delivers his verdict, Baby holds his breath, bracing for the worst. But to his surprise, the judge sentences him to 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole in just 5 years. While the sentence is harsh, it is also a glimmer of hope for Baby, who clings to the promise of a brighter future. Throughout his time in prison, Baby finds comfort in the postcards he receives from Debora. She tells him of all the places she dreams of visiting with him once he is free, and the future they will build together. And with that, Baby holds on to the hope of a beautiful life waiting for him just beyond the walls of his cell. As Baby steps out of the prison gates, his heart beats with anticipation and excitement. After serving his sentence for his past mistakes, he was finally free to start anew. And there, waiting for him with a smile on her face, was the one person he longed to see the most, Debora. The moment he lay eyes on her, all the colors of the world came to life. The vibrant hues surrounded him, bringing with them hope and happiness. He approached her, taking in every detail of her being, from the twinkle in her eye to the curves of her smile. And then, without hesitation, he leaned in and gave her a kiss filled with love and gratitude. For Baby, this was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in his life, one where he and Debora could journey together and see all the sights and wonders of the world, just as they had planned during his time in prison. And in that moment, all his past regrets and hardships were forgotten, for he was finally with the one person who brought meaning to his life. So, that's it. Be sure to comment with your thoughts below. If the video feels good, then like this video. Finally, don't forget to subscribe our channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified of our latest videos. Thank you for watching this video and have a nice day.